501 Cast. Information you need from experts we trust.
All right, good morning. Today we have Mike Martin on for our episode of the 501c Cast. Today we'll be talking about ins and outs of a learning management system. We're going to cover 3 topics: the evolution of LMS, target audience for LMS, and highs and lows. I am Tori Houwman, and I work for NPR, and then we have Baylor DeVries, and I'll let her go ahead and introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Baylor DeVries. I have been with NPR for about 6 months now and run the LMS for one of our clients. So I'm really excited today to hear from our expert about the ins and outs of our system, or learning management system. So with that, we'll just jump right into it. Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved in working for Litmos and what an LMS is for everyone hearing today?
Yeah, you bet. Hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate the two of you as well. And it's such a pleasure to meet you. I'm excited to be here today. Yeah, my name is Mike Martin. I've worked in learning and development for most of my life. So it all started way back. No, I won't do a big backstory like that. But I got my start really working in summer camps, working at YMCAs. I was a summer camp counselor for most of my growing up in my formative years. And I started working in experiential education. So I really started working with kids and working with adults on, I don't know if you've ever done this before, either of you gone up and, jumped off of a pole with a harness on and jumping out to a trapeze or done a ropes course style thing. That's kind of where I got my start and got really excited about learning and understanding how it could really affect folks. And then I wanted to get the academic side of it too and really understand how adults learn. So I went back and got my master's in instructional design and technology, and then landed a job starting in a business to start their training department, and fell in love with Litmos as a central part of the program I was putting together to train all of the employees there in the business. We needed something that could really harness everything and pull it all together, and Litmos was that tool, and that was back in 2011. And so I was a customer of the product, customer of SAP Litmos for all the way up until 2016, and then I liked it so much I put on the colors and put the jersey on and ended up going to work for them. And now I am the head of customer experience and learning for the company, and I handle all of the like the training and onboarding and that stuff for our customers. So that's my background in a nutshell.
That's great. And from your perspective, could you kind of give us a peek behind the curtain, as in what the industry is like from your point of view as an insider working at Litmos?
Yeah, you bet. It's cutthroat and intense. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean. I'm just kidding with you. At the end of the day, we're all educators and learning professionals. So all of us who compete in the market, it is a pretty big market. There's over 700, 800 different LMSs out there. There's something for everybody in the market there. And when you look at what people need, we're pushing each other forward with the ultimate goal of challenging each other to grow and helping our customers be successful. So, one of the things you'll see from me throughout this podcast is that as I try to simplify things, I think we overcomplicate a lot of things in life, especially in this industry too. So I just want to keep it simple. We're all just trying to provide an opportunity for people to learn no matter where they are, what device they're on, especially in this environment right now. And as you can see, I'm in my garage office, which I've been in for quite a while. I can see everybody else is working from home as well. We need to be able to train folks. We need to be able to educate them and give them opportunities to learn and grow in what they're doing. So it's a really great industry to be in. All of us are all pushing each other forward and trying with that goal in mind.
Great. Thank you, Mike. With that being said, we have a few topics that we want to touch on today, and Tori will introduce us to our first topic here.
Great.
All right. So touching on the evolution of an LMS, that's where we're going to get started. What is the history of an LMS, or for those who don't know, a learning management system?
Yeah, I wish I had some glasses to put on, right, to look really studious right now and start telling the story. Once upon a time. Well, I really think it goes back into the late 90s when companies really started to use this thing called an LMS. I don't even think it was really an LMS at that point. And really the idea behind the LMS was really just to track compliance. when you think about it, when it first got started, that was pretty much what it was supposed to do. It was to say, I, Mike, have taken X training, and now we can go in and have visibility to see that you've done that. At its most rudimentary level, all LMSs are pretty simple tools, and they were built to track training, to track learning, to track your ability to do things. Now, that's the thing though, is like an LMS really provides the opportunity and provides the coursework. But then again, the hurdle has always been, how does that transfer to actually demonstrable results, right, back in the workplace? So, but at its core, it started out as a compliance-based tool. And as it grew, it started to take on a lot more things that we'll talk about here, I'm sure, in the next pieces. But one last point on that is that when you look at LMSs today, as much as things change, they also stay the same, right? A lot of companies, that's basically what they use it for. It's a place for them to track their compliance training throughout the year. And that's fine, because they have other things in other systems that they use. But the LMS is definitely getting it's advancing, and it's starting to become something else that we'll talk about soon, I'm sure. Maybe
Great.
the next question.
Yeah, next question.
Yeah, that's great.
Outlook. What's coming in the future of LMS technology?
See, look at that. I baited you, and then now we're here. So well, what is coming in the future of an LMS technology is to move away from that simplicity of just saying it's a tool for you to log in once or twice a year, do your trainings, your information security and such, and move on. What we want it to be, and what the whole in the industry is moving towards, is really try to take advantage of all of the technologies that we have today. So think of it this way. We want it to be, we're moving towards a future that's more on demand and in the moment, without distracting somebody from whatever moment they're in. So consider this. Let's say that you're a salesperson, you're on a call, and your customer asks about, let's say you're in the home improvement space, and they ask about a sink, for instance, and your ability to go on and search and pull up information just in time, just in place, to give them what they need. That's definitely one of the directions we're moving. So remember, LMS has started as top down. I push content to you. You take the content. It tells me you took the content. End of story. Hard stop. Now we're moving to this. Well, what happens when I'm in the moment and I need it, or I have 5 minutes to learn about something? We're definitely moving to that on-demand, in the moment type, not distracting from the moment piece. A few of the other things that we're really seeing, it's becoming very learner focused and customized. So you come on, and maybe there's something that you, based upon courses you've taken before, or based upon your interests that you've put in there, that it will offer you up advice on things that would help you in your career trajectory, would help you understand soft skills better, whatever it might be, right? That it's becoming more learner focused and customized. It isn't just a one size fits all, everybody takes this. It's becoming, you log in, and then it will be able to weave and change your path depending on what things you tell it about yourself, right? So a couple other things: automated pushing to learners, right? The people don't have to go out and find everything. But on the same note there, the other side of that coin is that it's really enhanced with the search. So I think that like art really influences reality, right? That you look at that, and I think of like Iron Man, for instance, and talking to the to the AI system and saying, here's what I want, and having it pull up, and is this it, and be able to do that and search for things quickly. That's what we're moving towards, right? Is that we don't have to keep all the information in our brains anymore, but we need to be able to access it really quickly. So let me ask you two, think about how many phone numbers you have in your phones, right? Yep. Think about it. And I know that for my wife, I just touch her face on the phone. I'm like, yeah, and it calls her. It's like, I don't have to remember what her phone number is. Mm-hmm. I mean, I do, so don't give me that. But it's just access is the point of that, right? Is that I know how to find it within 30 seconds. I don't really need to memorize it anymore. So if you think about that, that's something that's also influencing and influencing the LMS world as we see it now. So those are just a few of the biggest ones. AI, the learner-focused, on-demand learning. Those are some of the things that I'm seeing that are coming out for all of us in the field.
Perfect. That brings us to our second topic, target audience, and Baylor is going to ask you the questions there.
Yeah, so what are the benefits in global use / trends, and who needs an LMS system in your opinion?
Yeah, well, we'll take the second part first, and we'll say that everyone needs an LMS system, right? You do, and you need an LMS system, and Being perfectly honest here, let's talk about why you would need one, right? And the first thing is about consistency. That's the first thing I would say, is that companies that are looking for an LMS are looking for a consistent way to send a message out to everyone across the globe. Like for us, for instance, we have offices all over the world, and literally in every country. And so for us to send one message out consistently, one training, one learning event, whatever it might be, this is a fantastic way for us to do that. And so consistency is like the bedrock, I think, of it, right? Think about even compliance, all of those. They're getting the same training, they're hearing the same message, and then they can react the same way with their customers. And that's what companies are looking for, is consistency and brand, right? You think about places like the Gap and things like that. They all have a brand and they want things to be done a certain way. This is a great way for that. The second one is visibility. So people who need visibility into what people are taking and understanding about and being able to look at trends as to who's the most, who gets the most results, and maybe what trainings they've been taking, and those types of things. Visibility into their learning, I think, is a big piece of that too. So companies looking for that to really keep their thumb on the pulse of how their employees are growing with the company and adding more value year over year. I think those folks are definitely looking at an LMS as well, or looking for this type of thing. And then simplicity is the last one. Looking for an easy way to get training out, to get education out, to bring people together. I think simplicity, people are looking for an easy way to do that. They're looking for pulling an LMS in. And going back to the story that I told earlier, when I was setting up this training department for this company, I wanted to have the LMS serve as the central repository for all the training, so that I knew at any point I could send people to it and they would get the same message, no matter if they were hired a year ago or if they were hired yesterday and we had a bunch of turnover with sales folks. They would be able to go in and have the same exact experience that other people did too. So consistency, visibility, simplicity, companies that are looking for that, being able to rinse, repeat, and get things out there in the same way, are really going to be a target audience for an LMS.
Definitely a great way to stay organized, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to get that message out?
Next, what are some key considerations when choosing a LMS, and some pros and cons with that? And are there different types of main categories?
Yeah, great question. Great question. There definitely is. And I think that people jump to the price as being the first one, right? Everyone always ends up with that. But what I always like to do is start from the end and then work your way backwards. And then you will really understand what you truly need. So you first start by saying, what's the problem that you're trying to solve? We get a lot of customers, at least in the initial stage before they become prospects, I guess, right? So prospects who come to us and say, we need an LMS. And we're like, okay, why? And they're like, I don't know. We're told we needed one and we think it's cool and that needs to happen. So we need to have a broader conversation about what problem you're trying to solve. So think about it this way. Are you in HR and you're trying to build a system that is going to track all of the training and compliance and their path through the company? It's going to do all of these things together. Do you need a big system that's tied into HR that IT owns and HR owns? I mean, that's going to be a different beast than something like SAP Litmos, where it's really quick to deploy. You can jump right in any department. Like for instance, let's say that you have a sales department and you want to fire up your own LMS instance that's really quick, easy to administer, and gets all the content out to enable your sales folks to sell everything that you sell. That would be a great instance. And it's a very different beast than a full HR suite. Does that make sense? To something that's really quick and right there on the spot, and is more small, departmental, that you can just turn on whenever you want to. So there's like sales enablement. Are you worried about partners training? Are you training customers? Right, that's a different thing than internal training. Is it all of the above? So you want to be thinking about that. There are definitely main categories, like HRIS system ones that are big on that side. There are quick deployment ones like SAP Litmos. There are ones that are more geared towards mobile, that are just that and do that super well. There are some that have really robust authoring tools in them, so that you get not only the content authoring and the LMS. There are some that just focus on LMS. So I'm going to go back here. So I guess it kind of sounds like I'm rambling now, even in my own head. I want to go back and just put the stake in the ground with what's the problem you're trying to solve, right? If a customer comes to me and they can articulate that well, then I can point them in the right direction and give them the right LMS or the right solution for their problem.
Well said. That brings us to our third topic, highs and lows.
Yeah,
So,
it's a good one.
pitfalls. What should a nonprofit watch out for when using LMS?
The biggest thing, I think it's a nonprofit, and this goes across any one of our customers, is having the belief that if you build it, they will come, right? Because here's the truth, is that we get excited in learning, and my passion, I'm sure, is coming through the microphone at the moment, is that I really like what I do, and I really enjoy teaching people. It's the center of my universe. But guess what? It's not the center of everyone's universe. You know, I feel like it should be, but it's not. At the end of the day, there are a lot of folks that are making these buying decisions and want to get an LMS that are more on the IT side, which is great. Their passion is around the technology and keeping things running. The sales side is about building the business and bringing in more money, right? I mean, you think about it, there are many different things that learning isn't the center for everybody. And what typically happens is people will build these LMSs and be like, man, once we turn this on, everyone's going to be in there and they're going to be talking to each other and they're going to be taking all this training and they're going to be growing and it's going to be fantastic. And that belief is something that you really should watch out for, is that if you build it, they will come, because they won't. They may, but it takes more than that, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they won't. I'm saying that what I meant to say is that it takes more than that. It takes a strategy for getting them to go there, getting them to realize how relevant it is for them, and getting them to stick around long enough to do something again, not just the first time, right? You get a first time flyby, that's great. That's a good start, but you need to get repetition and get them to come in there. And the only way to do that is to have a strategy that takes in quite a bit more than just getting them to do courses, right? And so I'm going to talk about that actually towards the end, about what I think are some of the things that you can do to do that. So let's leave that hanging for a minute, and then I'll come back to that of what does that mean, right? So when you think about, okay, Mike, tell me what I should do then. If it's not just build it and go ta-da and turn it on and then expect all this traffic, what can I do to make sure that we do get that traffic? I'm going to give you a few pieces of advice at the end here. We'll save that today.
Perfect. That brings us to our next question. On the opposite end, success stories. Anything in particular that's a standout story?
Yeah, and I think it fits your world too. And although I can't name names to protect the innocent, we do have a customer that's in the nonprofit world, and they recently went live with our solution, and they cater over 1 million associates across the globe. 1 million, right? And a lot of these are volunteers. And they're able to conduct focused training globally that's very consistent, going back to what I mentioned before. They get very regionally too, to really localize depending on what part of the world they're in, which is great. Consistent message across that, and localized as well. And then even down to the very local level, where it's individual groups of people working, and they're able to set up a structure that just, it all really works together. So everybody's getting a very consistent message, and everybody is really connected to the core of what their organization is about. But if you think about it, right, it's with over 1 million different associates, and it's a big volunteer network that I mentioned before. They can provide the same training that they did face-to-face before this, cheaper to anyone on this little blue ball of planet floating through space. It's great for them to be able to have it be a central spot where people can come and get the information that they need very quickly from wherever they are, and have conversations with their volunteer groups across the world. So again, that's a pretty big, it's one of the biggest for us, for sure. It's pretty exciting to see millions of people in the system working to really grow their businesses and to train their people across the globe. It's pretty exciting.
Great. That leads us into our closing, which, kind of like you mentioned before, one of our closing questions is, what advice would you give a client considering taking the leap of implementing a LMS system?
Yeah, so this goes back to the cliffhanger now. So let's get back into that. I really think it breaks down to 3 things. And I think if you think of it this way, it will be really helpful. 1, get as much support as you can. 2, think about the content that you're putting in there and whether you'd want to do it. And 3, think about the ease of use of the system that you're implementing. So let's jump back and dig into each one of those a little bit more specifically. Getting support means that you're getting support from your direct supervisors, you're getting support from their supervisors and leaders, all the way up to the CEOs and the C-suite of your organizations, right? If they're not on board and bought in, you are already fighting the headwind, right? You're trying to sail against, I mean, I'm mixing metaphors here, but you have a headwind there. It's really difficult for you to get a lot of traction if they don't even think it matters that much. Give you an example. I've heard before, like managers of mine that have said, oh yeah, you've just got to do this training. You just got to get in. I know it sucks. Just get in there. I had to do it too. And I hated it, but I just knuckled down and got it done. Now think about that. If your boss is telling you that, like think about how excited you would be about going in and doing that training. You've already, I mean, you've crippled their, I don't know, their excitement about going in and doing it already. So get support. That's got to be it. You got to get people on board and get them to support what you're doing and be your advocates and go out there and shout to the world how great it is. To have conversations with their employees. So all the supervisors to say, hey, have conversations with your employees and talk to them about why we're doing this and what's important and what they can gain, what's in it for me, right? If you can get them to support you and they're talking about it in their meetings, they're like, oh yeah, I'm 100% behind you. And they're talking about it like, hey, I did it and I loved it. And here's what I liked about it. That's going to be an important piece. And to me, that's the biggest. So I'm going to spend the most time on that. That's why I just did, because a lot of people miss that one because it's not a technical thing. It's not a turn on a switch and have a new feature. It's a behavioral thing that you need to go and change minds and get them on board. The second one is around content. Think about going to a restaurant, right? And ordering something and the food is just garbage. And you're like, I'm not going to come back here. That's what people feel about LMSs too, right? They'll come there no matter how much their bosses are touting how great it is and how easy it is for them to use. They eat the food, they take the content, and it's rough for them. They're not going to have a really intense excitement about going back to that again. So you have to understand that all these things work together, right? And then it also makes the bosses look bad if the content's not good. And then they're like, man, you sent me to go do this. And this wasn't relevant or good for me at all. So you got to be thinking about what you're serving in your restaurant, as it were, right? What content and whether it's really relevant to them and it's good and fun and novel and interesting, because if you'll lose them in this gamified Hollywood world that we live in now, where you can't tell what's real from what's not. So we need to be thinking about the content as well and making something that's top notch for them to want to come back to. And third, it's about ease of use. Again, let's say the content's great, that you have a lot of support, but the LMS or wherever the system is that they're accessing is clunky. It doesn't work right. The passwords are an issue. You've got all these problems. Again, nobody has time for that. They just don't. And they're going to try it once and they're going to give up because we have all this other stuff that we have to do, money to make and quotas to hit. It's like, I don't have time to mess around in the system. So you got to be thinking about how the system supports what you're trying to create by making it easy for them to get what they need and get out. I mean, really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. So those three things have to work together. If you don't have all three things firing at the same time, then I feel like you're running into an issue, right? You can have one, but not the other two, or you can have two, but not the other one, and you're still going to have an issue of engagement and retention. So get support, have people talk about it and get excited about it. Think about the content you're serving, and then think about how easy the system is to use. If you can lock those three things in, guaranteed that you're going to have a better time than you are not doing that stuff.
Great. Now, as a final closing statement, what is your greatest lesson from working in this industry?
Yeah, I think it's to realize that what we're trying to do is simple. And let me explain that a little bit. I think it is. At the end, it's really simple. Provide environments and conditions for people to learn in, right? To grow, we want them to succeed. We want people to learn. We want people to engage with each other. We want them to learn from each other. We need to provide these environments for them to do that. And because that raises all the ships. You think about that tide right there will raise all the ships. It'll raise your revenues. It will raise excitement about in buzz in the industry. What we're trying to do is create this environment where people are sharing, they're learning, they're challenging each other, they're growing, and they're connected to what they're doing. And to me, the greatest lesson is that it's pretty simple, is don't overcomplicate it. get people passionate about what you're trying to do, and keep pushing to make things fun and novel and relevant and different, and something that isn't just the plain old boring, I open up the LMS, I take a course, blah, 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 blah. Because as we talked about early on in the call, we're trying to move to this very personalized, group-oriented, I can contribute my own content approach, where now the LMS is open, the walls are taken down, and it's not a walled garden where only the top leaders are pushing content down and what they say. We want it to be a place that is really connecting everybody together and learning from each other. So I would say keep the passion going, right? That lesson is, don't overcomplicate it. Just realize, your North Star should be, I'm trying to get people to learn, to grow, and give them an environment to do that. So if you don't want to go in there and do that, then that's your first probably indicator that there's a problem to be solved, to be thinking about, well, what would get me to want to really connect to this? And then start there, and then work your way backwards. As I mentioned earlier, start with the problem statement, work your way backwards, and figure out what you need to put together to make that happen.
Great. Well, I'm so glad you came on today. I mean, Baylor and I both
Opportunity
with LMS, and I still think I feel like we learned both quite a bit, and we have more experience than those that don't have any experience on it.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great episode to have, so that those wanting to learn more and have more questions can really follow along and kind of see your opinion from an expert stance. I included Mike's email here, mike.martin@sap.com. He would be willing to answer questions if you wanted to follow up with him.
Sure.
Any
Email
last
me, hit me
minute?
up on LinkedIn, whatever. I'm all good.
Yeah. What's your, is just Mike Martin on LinkedIn?
I think so. I think it's Michael. It might be Michael. I don't know if I got Mike Martin or not. Just search for me. You can find, I think that picture is the same as the one in here.
All right. Well, thank you again. And Mike, have a great day. We appreciate you making the time to come on and speak on this episode. So
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
all right. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. You too. Cheers.